In 1999, the Canadian Pacific Railway created the Holiday Train to travel across Canada, bringing holiday cheer and raising money for local food banks in each community they stopped in. 2 years later, they added a second train to travel across the United States. Cottage Grove resident Phil Wagner traveled on the train those first couple of years.
And this train starts in Scranton, Pennsylvania. It ends in Moose Jaw, Canada. It crosses the border at Portal, North Dakota, and there's 3 stops after Portal. I was a senior investigator on the Holiday Train. The first year the train ran in U.S., there was no stage car on it, and it was a lot smaller than what it is now. I had a couple musicians just singing a couple songs on the rear of the train. That was the whole thing.
It was about this time that Sandy Sheely, the mayor of Cottage Grove, and resident Mary Slusser with the Chamber of Commerce first saw the Holiday Train.
I can remember standing down by Belden and seeing this beautiful lighted train come through Cottage Grove. That's before it started stopping here.
It stopped in Hastings and it stopped in St. Paul.
When I saw it come through, I thought, oh, that's gorgeous. You know, where is it going and why isn't it stopping here?
I said to my husband, I wonder what I need to do to get this to stop in Cottage Grove.
Mary took over through the chamber because this train operates through local chambers.
I started making phone calls to Canada. They weren't sure if the train was even coming back in 2003. And so it took me about 8 months of phone calling.
At the same time, Phil was also talking with CP about stopping in Cottage Grove.
They finally told me that if I could take and rearrange the schedule, the train schedule, so that we could stop at Cottage Grove, fit it in, that they would do it.
And then they said it's going to stop. And so when I hung up the phone, I said to myself, now what do I do?
We knew right away that it was very important that we involve all 3 communities that are part of our local chamber. That'd be Newport, St. Paul Park, and Cottage Grove. So we began by putting together a committee.
The committee organized and started fundraising for the event. Then, in December 2003, the Holiday Train put on the brakes and rolled to a stop in Cottage Grove.
This year's Santa will rock the rest.
First year the Holiday Train stopped in Cottage Grove was at Belden Crossing. That's the location that the CP had selected for us.
First time that we came around the bend on the train and I saw that group. I think that will forever be in my memory. Walking out on the stage on the train and having the opportunity to welcome everybody.
We had raised $13,000 and the crowd size was around 5,000 people.
It was so popular the first year, had a huge crowd and collected a lot of money, so it continued on. Since then it's grown to a big production.
The first couple of years, it was really freezing, and yet people still came.
In fact, so many people came to the Cottage Grove stop that in 2007, it had to be moved to accommodate the large crowd.
The thickness of the crowds actually spilled out onto Hadley Avenue. They suggested that we move the location, which we did, and it was in front of the Youth Service Bureau or the Chamber of Commerce office at that time.
The Cottage Grove stop is the biggest stop on either train in both countries. That's all they talk about is the Cottage Grove, because it's really exciting as to the, seeing the crowd and the enthusiasm.
And the staff on the train, they were always, commenting on the fact that, well, get ready, we're almost in Cottage Grove. So they knew right away, early on, this was a big stop. And there'd be several thousand people with several thousand glow sticks. It was a beautiful sight.
When it comes around the bend behind the trees and you see the headlights, there's just this silence in the crowd and this awesome silence. And just talking about it, I just get goosebumps with just watching the train come in.
Being an outdoor event in Minnesota in December has certainly caused for some cold nights, but it was a different story in 2010, the only year the event was canceled in town.
We had the blizzard that came through, and our police department, safety department was very concerned about the citizens and the safety and so forth, so they ended up canceling it because of that, and it was the right decision.
The next 2 years, the holiday train gathered some of the largest crowds, topping out at 10,000 people and raised over $100,000 each year.
When I first started the holiday train, the lady from the Canadian Pacific, and she said, if you do this right, you're going to be the role model city for the holiday train, which they always say that we are. And she just kind of walked me through, and we do it.
Early on, we made the decision that in order for this to succeed, it had to involve as many different groups of people as possible. Schools, the businesses, the churches, the chamber, the Lions Club, the royalty, all the different groups.
I really think the railroad, Canadian Pacific, has done an outstanding job with this fundraiser.
I'm just grateful that the Canadian Pacific listened to us and saw the need.
And I'm so thankful to the Canadian Pacific for doing it, to the people for supporting it, and for people like Mary Slessor to take it on early on and continue with it this day.
God bless you, Cottage Grove.